This is Unrelegated, recording live from our studio at Hudson FC with special guest Rickey Bevington of Georgia Public Broadcasting. Welcome, Rickey.
Great to be here.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We are so excited.
Can you just say welcome to Unrelegated for us? I just want to hear your voice across.
We also want to be able to just be able to clip this out and just repeat this over and over again.
In my best NPR voice.
Yes.
Welcome to Unrelegated.
Oh, so smooth and savory.
Oh my gosh, I'm just going to have Alexa repeat that to me as I'm going to sleep. God, it's like butter on toast.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So, guys, before we get into all the stuff, because we have so many questions for you, and I know you just got back from the Ukraine, and you were doing some exciting things over there. But, Kelly, recap for me. How it's been a week or two since we were all together. I know I filmed you guys doing Queens of the South, but that's always different. Yeah.
That is always so. That was the first time we filmed Queens of the South, which was if anybody's been checking up on Twitter and Instagram, we also had some wonderful mishaps, as it always is for the first time filming.
Brand.
Yes, very on brand. But I actually spent the weekend in Crossville, Tennessee, a small little town in Tennessee, kind of near Knoxville. I went up to go see an old friend of mine who was in a really prodigious playhouse there. Got some wonderful time watching some plays and just relaxing. So I just got back from Tennessee late Sunday night.
Did you bring them flowers?
I did not bring them flowers.
What?
I brought them myself, which is just as equal as flowers.
I don't know the rules anymore. I just know, like, if my nephew he's in a lot of plays and we have to bring a bouquet of flowers because he's one of the lead roles or whatever. I think we still do. I think my Jenny does it anyways. You know, it's her nephew, so it doesn't matter if he's in the chorus. He gets a bouquet of flowers.
I don't know if it's like once you get over a certain age, it's okay to not bring flowers. I didn't even think about bringing flowers. Now I feel like a really awful friend.
I'm not getting in the
Wow.
That's what I'm here for.
Look, I bought her 2 bottles of wine.
Oh, well,
so that counts.
Way better than flowers.
Way better. Last longer, depending on who you are.
That's very true. That's very true.
How fast you drink. I actually went and, every now and then, like on a Five Stripe Friday, the team will do a scavenger hunt or something. And, like, the last one I kind of made fun of because it was, like, right at 5 o'clock, like, right at rush hour. And I was like, if you do the scavenger hunt, like, this is actually a test of your fandom. Like, in downtown Atlanta in the middle of rush hour, good on you. I'm not doing it.
How much of a fan are you?
Yeah, I'm plastic. I won't do it. I won't go through the traffic. So if that makes me a plastic fan, I'm a plastic fan. But I did it this time, and actually I'm kind of surprised, Kelly, because they did the scavenger hunt where that new peach drawing mural is off Edgewood Ave. Which is like right down the street.
It's right down the street from where I work, and I still haven't seen it.
I got there. It took me like 20 minutes to get there, and I was like the 4th person to get there.
I am so ashamed.
And I was surely expecting to get there with Kelly Francis holding the crate, the Peach Kit crate, and like
wait, they had
taking
a crate with it too?
Yes. Like if I got there 20 minutes and there were people like the first guy had just arrived minutes before me. Imagine. You could have walked there in 3 minutes.
Oh, for sure. Or I could have been completely bougie and got like a bird or a Lyft scooter and been there in a minute.
Because you and Jessica work in the same building, so I was just imagining you guys running and tripping each other, like elbowing to get there first to get the Peach Kit crate.
We both know who would end up winning that fight.
I was very disappointed. I was expecting to see you guys there, but that's okay. I know you were working, and so that your boss would be happy because it means you were busy working.
Yeah,
and you were watching the Twitters.
I was focused.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Rickey, again, thank you for joining us here at Hudson. First of all, welcome back to Atlanta.
Thank you. You guys have been really busy while I've been in the Ukraine, so I feel totally out of touch with Tennessee theater and downtown scavenger hunts. And
we're here to catch you up. That's what we're here for. What were you doing in the Ukraine?
I was there during their presidential election. The Ukraine is going through an interesting transition. They are right next to Russia, and they're kind of at this pivot point in their history. And the presidential candidates are deciding whether to bring the country more toward Europe and the United States in terms of their political system and value system and social makeup, or maybe move toward Russia. So I was there literally on election night at the 3 watch parties of the leading presidential candidates, which was fascinating.
Wow.
Watch parties for politicians are pretty standard and pretty vanilla and very safe. They might have a rock song that they
Right.
come out to, right? Like Born in the USA or something. That's pretty much the highlight of a typical political watch
Yeah, maybe
party.
they'll take off their
know.
jacket and roll up their sleeves, right?
Oh, wow. We're getting risky there, Jay.
Right, or like have 2 glasses of wine.
Right.
But one of the leading candidates who's actually a comedian, he's an actor.
Oh, wow.
He's 41 years old, 0 political experience. I walk into his presidential watch party after the other 2, which were just safe and pretty, stale. I walk in and there's foosball, there's ping pong, there's air hockey, there's an open bar, and everybody's like under 30. So very different
Locking up
election
that youth vote.
experience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For sure.
And he's in the runoff with the incumbent president. So
nice.
Ukraine, lots going on right now. Highly recommend a trip to Kiev at very least.
Very cool. Well, we're glad you're back and that you can join us, and now we can drill you about soccer and your Land United fandom and all that stuff. First, I want to kind of get an idea of how you got into broadcasting, because I was just telling you guys before we started recording, a year ago, I didn't even know how to edit audio. I didn't have a mixer. I didn't have anything.
These are facts.
And it opened my mind, and then I started getting into video, and it's like, oh my God, like there's so much you can do with this stuff. But, I mean, you've been doing this for quite a while.
I have been doing it for quite a while, since really before online video. So before you
the
could,
interwebs?
What? What is going on?
I'm not 1,000 years old. But I will say that things have changed since I first got into the industry. And I got into it by accident through passion, just like you. I was invited. I was tutoring this girl in college, and her father came home one day and said, "Do you need a summer job? Because we need interns." And it turned out that he ran Sundance Channel, which is an independent film channel in New York. I was in New York City. So that's really how I fell into it. I needed a summer job. It was a paid internship, which are hard to find in New York, so I could afford to stay.
Wait, I'm sorry, you said paid
I know.
internship New York?
It does feel
Those
like
3 words
1,000
don't
years
go
ago.
together.
I know. I'm sure it was like $250 for the whole summer. But it was something, and that launched my broadcast career.
That's amazing. And then, as we all know, you eventually worked your way down to Georgia, and you've been with Georgia Public Broadcasting for how many years now?
13 long and lovely years.
Oh,
Boom.
wonderful years, I am sure. What brought you into Georgia Public Broadcasting?
My parents grew up in Atlanta, and I was born in Piedmont Hospital, so I had family roots here. And I was raised in the Northeast, in the town next to Miles Robinson.
Oh, wow.
He is an Arlington, Massachusetts
Trivia fact.
native. I grew up in Winchester. We were soccer rivals, at least the girls' teams.
Right.
And I remember teams by their colors. Arlington is maroon and white. So Miles and I, of course, have walked down memory lane together. The Arlington-Winchester soccer rivalry. But I was raised up there because my parents went to graduate school when I was a baby. So I had family roots here, and when I decided I really wanted to commit to public radio and television, I'd been in commercial broadcasting. I worked for the CBS affiliate in Hartford, Connecticut.
I'm a Connecticut guy.
You are?
Shelton, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you know WFSB TV.
Yes, absolutely.
Channel 3 Action News. Live, local, late breaking. I was your overnight producer, writing the morning newscast. And I would get off at 7 a.m., and I would go
So
and
basically, it was
volunteer.
between you and Dee Snider. That's basically the 2 stations I listened to. I was
Really?
Dee Snider when it was still the rock station before they made it a pop station. And they would put on those great rock festivals, and then of course Hartford. Yeah, there was just. I remember radio was a big deal when I lived in Connecticut. I was still a big part of my life. So very cool, very cool.
Nice.
Sorry, I'm just reminiscing now. I'm just thinking.
I know. We could talk about Connecticut for hours and hours.
Home of the
but I'd rather not.
home of the wiffle ball, by the way. Home of the wiffle ball.
Really random, Jay. Really random.
Sorry, I don't know Miles Robinson, Ricky.
He
all
likes
I
to
have.
throw those random things in there quite frequently. But you obviously worked your way down to Georgia Public Broadcasting.
Yeah. So I got into NPR and PBS because I started volunteering at the local public radio station at 7 a.m. when I'd gotten off my overnight shift. So I was kind of their volunteer news producer. And then one day they needed a Saturday morning host, so they were like, "Go on air, sure, figure it out." So I dove right into live radio.
Do the thing, yeah.
Just you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So those poor Connecticut listeners, right? And then one of my 4th day on air, the Pope was dying. And I'm
Oh my
all
gosh.
alone in the studio, and I'm reading these like breaking news updates about. I mean, anyway, just somebody's broadcast career is going to have these moments of just pure insanity.
I'll pledge some money if you get Rickey out of there.
And I'm turning on the radio like, the Pope is dying. Back to the news. Oh my gosh. What more do you say?
I feel for people that are like on TV and have to break news every day and then just jump into like a happy story about a kid who, lost his cat and like they found
then found
it.
the cat, yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, that car wreck that he's still talking about, I'm still thinking about it. Like, I just move
Oh
on.
my gosh.
So I didn't answer her question, though. I got to
Answer the
Georgia
question, Jay.
because a job opened up, and I thought that Georgia Public Broadcasting would be a great opportunity for me, and I could do both TV and radio.
Yeah.
So I've done TV and radio for GPB for 13 years.
That's insane. I remember growing up to GPB quite often, and the program that was on that station I always loved. And my parents, that was like the one station my parents always agreed that I could watch. Everything
Safe
else
space.
was just like, I don't know. We'll consider that. But I remember I could always just it was a safe bet that if there was something going on, I could safely watch that. My parents wouldn't be like, go do this or go do that. So.
Yeah, I was raised on public radio. My parents we'd go on long car trips. NPR was always, it was either books on tape or NPR. Like there was no in between. Now with satellite radio, I think my dad does some other stuff. But yeah, that was my life. Growing up, I was in the car with two working parents a lot.
Yeah.
So I feel like NPR, the number of hours in my life, it was a lot. It was really So when I moved to Georgia, and there's like two different stations too, right? So like it was, and I lived in Smyrna, and I could pick up both of them. So like if I already heard the news that they were talking, I could flip to the other station, and I was like, "This is great."
I do the same thing.
Yeah,
By the way.
I don't have to listen to the same story twice. I wish I had this up in Connecticut with WNPR up there. But now, do you ever find a chance to weave Atlanta United into your work at all? Like you just did. You just mentioned you were Miles Robinson.
Yes.
Hold on, that was a very casual. Yeah, me and Miles. We go way back.
Is your producer like, Rickey? Okay, try not to talk about Atlanta United today.
Try not to weave.
Right. I would say my newsroom colleagues would invite me to have less newsroom chatter, a commentary about the last night's game.
Yeah.
But they've learned a lot about the game of soccer from yours truly. Right.
You're an
That's
ambassador.
amazing.
So, and I might have just volunteered a bunch of flags on the walls of the newsroom. I might have put those up. They were appeared there one morning.
How unfortunate.
It's just necessary, honestly.
Yeah. So it's really interesting to have a personal passion, and that personal passion becomes a news story that it is actually within my job scope to cover it.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was up at the Flowery Branch Atlanta Falcons practice place where Atlanta United was practicing before they had their own facilities, a couple of days before their very first game, and I was interviewing Jacob Peterson.
Oh,
who's
wow.
no longer with the team, and Miles was... anyway, they were the two players that they let me interview. I couldn't talk to Tata. I couldn't talk to anybody else. I could observe the practicing. Jacob Peterson was like, nobody had any idea. I mean, he was nervous.
Yeah.
He's like, there's still players getting off the plane. We just met each other. Not everybody speaks English. There's translators on the field during coaching. And there was one other reporter there. And me, and I did a whole feature on the beginning of the season and nobody really knowing what was going to happen, and then within weeks the world learned that this is going to be a thing.
Yeah.
So I would say that was the first of probably a dozen stories I've done on Atlanta United, which is a lot for about 2 years. We're like right over the 2-year mark of the season, right?
Before Atlanta United,
2016, right?
Yeah.
Before Atlanta
3
United,
years.
Yeah, it was 3 years. 3 years. Yeah.
Before Atlanta United, we didn't have a professional soccer team in terms of first division, right? We had Silverbacks and things like that. So, I mean, how often before Atlanta United did soccer come up in the news? Was it ever like international soccer news or anything like that ever come up?
I don't think I ever did a soccer story before Atlanta
that's so
United.
wild.
That's so wild.
Yeah.
I do remember there was a particular time, because we're Twitter friends, obviously.
We're Twitter besties.
We're Twitter besties. But I do remember that there was a particular tweet that you had at some point that was like, I promise I'm going to try to limit my amount of
I did.
tweeting about Atlanta United. And I remember I just thought that
And
was
you were
so
like,
charming
what?
because I was like,
Yeah,
no, tweet away.
Yeah.
You mean you don't constantly talk about them 24/7?
I'm like, it's the complete. Like, I'm thinking the complete opposite. Like, no, tweet more.
Tweet more. We want more.
But at the same time, I was just with the Siempre United, Spanish-speaking Atlanta United podcast, and one of the parceros at playing paintball on Sunday. And we made it through the whole day without talking about soccer. So that was actually kind of nice because we just kind of enjoy the moment.
Right.
We didn't talk about it. So I was like, oh, okay, that's what that's like. That's to not be constantly talking about it.
You know what's so funny is I literally went to Tennessee to have a break, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there and I'm getting ready to do things and I'm watching games while I'm getting ready to do things. And I'm like, of course I am. And then I'm like, okay, well, nobody's going to talk to me about the games. Like, nobody's going to sit there and watch the games with me. And I sat with them one night and we started watching Iron Man to like get ready for the new Avengers movie coming out. And one of the theater performers came in and was like, I follow you on Instagram and Twitter. I love Atlanta United. Let's talk Atlanta United.
Oh,
and
no.
I'm like, what? You followed me all the way to Crossville?
You got blown up.
What is going on?
Yeah, oh, my goodness.
But that
so much for the break.
Yeah, right. So that being said, I think your intro into Atlanta United was more based on Georgia Public Broadcasting wanting to get the story, but you yourself were a soccer fan. I'm assuming.
Early adopter, yes. So first of all, I have to fact check us. 2 years ago, March, is when Atlanta United played their first game.
Yes.
And it's not 3 years ago. It's 2019, right? So
right.
That's the journalist in me here. Like, well, let's get our facts straight here, folks. So here's why I rekindled my love of soccer. I grew up playing, and I guess I sort of fell away from it in college. I wanted to party and chase boys. So I was not a soccer player. I played Ultimate in college. So just very similar, you know.
I'm so glad we're doing video on this because that was adorable.
I mean, we're among friends, right? So, and I was dating this guy who came from Europe and was passionate about soccer, but every time I would tell him about I was captain of the women's soccer team in high school and I was really passionate about it, he kind of would look at me sideways. So when we broke up, I thought, you know what? This is who I am. I love soccer. I am a soccer player. It made me the woman I am today. It taught me leadership. It taught me collaboration. It taught me big picture thinking. You got to see the whole field. You have to anticipate what might happen. You have to know your team's strengths and weaknesses. You have to know the plays. You have to follow instruction from your coach. That has all played into my career today, right? So I went out and I said, I also make my own money, and I'm going to go buy myself some season tickets.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Take that. And I bought myself some club season tickets.
Boom.
And because I wanted the second level so I could see the whole field at once.
I 100% understand that.
So certain kinds of soccer players will know what it means to see the entire field. And I can see how the players are watching the game and the decisions they're making based on what they see, you know. So that's how I rekindled my love of soccer. And then, of course, being an anchor on NPR and GPB, I can then bring that into my journalism.
I love it. I love it. Well, you know, from those club seats, do you have any favorite match day moments?
I have the one that everybody talks about, which is the first game. Right?
Come on.
No, but I have more.
No, but
okay, I have
I mean,
a couple more.
Yeah.
I said that just because it's like everybody talks about it, and I admitted this in a vlog that we did. That was the only game I've ever missed.
You missed? Bless your heart.
I know. It's the one game everyone talks about it. It's the one game I.
Do you remember the first goal?
The first
Kelly's like, no.
Yeah, we still talk about it. So, you know, when I told people I'd bought season tickets, they looked at me like I had three heads. Like, soccer? And wait, a woman bought her own season ticket? Like, there were just too many question marks here happening. Like, what is this soccer game? This is the South. We don't play soccer down
It's at
here.
A college stadium? Like, what's happening?
I mean, all of it. So walking into that first game and realizing I wasn't the only one.
Right.
Yeah.
That there were tens of thousands of other people who were just as excited about this as I felt like I belonged finally, and I didn't have to explain myself finally. But I have a couple of other moments. One, bringing legendary University of Georgia football coach Vince Dooley to his first Atlanta United game. This would have been like October 2017, right before the end of the season, and this is a man who has done everything in sports, right? I couldn't get him to his seat because he was so impressed with the fans that he kept stopping to look at them.
That's insane.
So we're trying to make our way to and he just keeps stopping and turning around, and his jaws drop, and he's like,
why are they standing still?
Why are they all standing? Why are they all yelling the entire game?
So if Vince Dooley can be impressed by a stadium of rabid sports fans, I know that Atlanta United fans are doing something right.
That's incredible.
And then the third is I brought my father to a game. My father grew up in Atlanta, and one of our ushers, they're about the same age. So two guys in their 60s start chatting. It turns out they both saw Pele play.
What?
In 1968 at Fulton County Stadium, which preceded Turner Field. And they were both high school ushers, so they were working the game that day.
That is so crazy.
I just got goosebumps.
I did too. Oh my gosh.
It's like their summer jobs, and sort of watch them realize it as they're just chatting like old guys, catching up. Oh, you're from Atlanta, I'm from Atlanta. And to realize that they'd shared that experience, when they were 16 or however old they were, was really neat to just watch the whole thing unfold before me.
Yeah. That is incredible. It's
we're going to have to shut down that line of questioning now, because, how do you top that?
You can't top that. That's incredible.
That usher. You guys should interview that
We
usher.
should.
I will connect you with him because he's always at my club.
That would be incredible. We would go to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would go to him. Yeah.
We'll bring the interview to him.
Make it happen.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah. So being that, and you've had these incredible moments. You've actually been up and close and personal with players as well. Whether it's through that interaction or just watching them on the field, who is your favorite Atlanta United player and why?
Yeah.
I'm going to say the person that a lot of people say, which is Darlington Nagbe.
Oh, yeah.
Since the beginning.
You'd actually be surprised. Not a lot of people say him.
Last year he was getting a lot of love, and then now it's been kind of like, I feel like, I don't know why, but it's just, I feel like he doesn't get talked about
enough.
as much.
Yeah, for sure.
I since the beginning, I've known, and it might be because I'm a similar player.
Right.
I was a similar player back in my.
You always will be.
I will.
Same.
It's true.
You always will be.
Yeah, and he. In fact, the team, Atlanta United's Twitter handle, tweeted out something about Darlington. It might have been his birthday, but it said "our" and then an emoji diamond in the middle, and I thought, that's it.
Yeah.
Or diamond in the middle. That's Darlington Nagbe. He's totally aware of what's happening. He anticipates plays. Forget just that he's so consistent, and this is what I think a lot of casual soccer fans don't see. They see the big plays and the big stars and the dramatic moments. What they don't see is the tiny little touches and the tiny little decisions that are made by super consistent players that you can trust in any scenario, forward or back, who are going to set things up so the big dramatic plays can even begin. Even if it's 25 touches behind the big play, it started back there in the middle with somebody like Darlington Nagbe.
It's such an important piece to always bring up and mention, because when we discuss what's going on with the team and we discuss our analysis on the game, it is important to realize that there are players who are constantly consistent, and there are players who sometimes don't get the light shed on them that they deserve. And so that sort of bleeds into this question, which was prompted to us by Jason Longshore last season, which was this idea of who would you say is your most underrated player? And it could be a Darlington Nagbe, or it could be somebody else. In your opinion, who would you see as being the most underrated player?
Well, I guess it depends on. I'll just stick with Darlington because it depends on who you're asking. If you're asking the casual Atlanta United fan, it would be, because they wouldn't really be. It's hard to explain that. to somebody who only sees the scoring or the sprinting or the long crosses. But I don't think, I guess I'd also don't want to say that Darlington Nagbe is underrated. He's very celebrated. So it might be a younger player who maybe hasn't had a chance to prove themselves. We're seeing that with Miles Robinson this season, somebody who's still developing, coming into his own.
He's been our MVP this season.
He is.
Like
crazy.
Last year, he couldn't
consistent?
get a game because he wasn't consistent, and now he's really shining.
Now,
so,
whenever he's not in the lineup, we're like, what's going on?
Absolutely. Well, very cool. So those are like the three questions for a while there. Because we were rotating so many different watch parties, we had so many new guests and stuff. That's what we would ask everybody that comes on. So now you got those out of the way. But now I want to delve into more about the culture around Atlanta United. So, we talk about the match day experiences and all of that stuff. What do you feel connects you to the team? I mean, obviously you see a Darlington Nagbe, you like that because that reminds you of the way you played soccer, things like that. You like the fact that, when you brought Dooley to the game, the fans and how that connection went. I mean, what is it? What is it about the team that really, drives you to talk about it all the time? Or drive your coworkers crazy?
Well, I think the positivity of the fans is really nice. Not that we can't engage in... It's so weird to say. I can't say a swear word in front of a microphone because I was going to say crap talk. I've been doing this for far too long, and I've lived under the FCC guidelines. I was going to say a bad word, but that's so awkward.
We could insert it.
Out of my comfort zone.
I can just try and imitate your voice.
Kelly
and say
can do a
it for
voiceover.
It's so off-brand for an NPR anchor to say shit talk.
Yes. So excited. I'm also going to clip that and repeat that and let that be what puts me to sleep at night.
You are so unrelegated.
I think so. The positivity of the fans, like even when we're ranking on Orlando, it's fun and it's really to kind of pump ourselves up as much as it is to sort of trash the other team. I interviewed the guys of Footy Mob early days, probably even before their first tailgate.
Yeah, I can't remember the other guy's name, but Curtis Jenkins is one of the founders. Yeah,
and it was like, how Atlanta is this? These guys take Atlanta songs, they change the lyrics to be soccer chants, and they had little cards made to hand out to the... And it just was kind of the grassroots nature of people embracing the team. And I know that that's unique, that Atlanta United let, the people decide what the fan groups, supporters groups were going to be. It wasn't the team creating the supporters groups. And then Darren Eales sort of invited them in to collaborate. And now I think the supporters groups have really informed how the team kind of promotes the culture. And that kind of grassroots fandom is very special. And it's really, I think, how Arthur Blank has been so successful as a businessman with Home Depot. He was a user experience expert. That's a lot of how he built the success of that company. He would interview his customers in the parking lot. Like, what did you like about the store? Why didn't you buy something when you were in there? And Arthur Blank is not only a genius at marketing, but he really cares about the user experience, and we fans are users. So I think that makes the fan experience really powerful. But then soccer in the streets, the work that the team does to develop young players. I interviewed maybe a 9-year-old who's one of the academy or player development, whatever MLS requires, each team to develop young players. And he was just so excited about being able to wear a little shirt that he felt part of the organization. So what the team is doing for the community in terms of raising the next generation of soccer players, boys and girls.
Yeah, and I even have I'll see friends that I've made through Atlanta United that have kids, and they'll be on Facebook, and their kid gets invited, or they get to go to the event, and they may not make it, but just the experience just is everything to them, to be able to go to the training ground, to be able to do that stuff. So yeah, all the outreach and just how well Atlanta United has embedded themselves in the community. You can't escape it. Whether you're driving down the street now, it's just they're always going to see a flag or a sticker or
a mural. And I think that's one of the best things that I love about this city is that it's embraced everyone. It feels like that there is no group that this team doesn't fit.
Yeah.
That this team doesn't welcome with open arms. And I think that's one of the most amazing things. And I think that also spreads into this idea that there can be art and there can be flags and there can be paint and various parts of the city. I mean, we're talking about murals all the way from where I live in East Point over to around Georgia Tech. You've got some in the Old Fourth Ward, Cabbagetown. Going further up, you've got some in Buckhead. You've got some in Roswell. I mean, and Alpharetta. I think there's also one in Alpharetta. But I mean,
someone in Douglasville made their own as well. Yeah.
Is there any particular? I know that there are many murals, but are there any particular murals or a particular mural and singularity that you find engaging or meaningful to the team and to the city?
I've only seen them mostly on social media, so I think I have to maybe do a tour. That should be like something you guys do, is like go visit you could lead a fan experience.
It'd be cool.
Murals.
There's actually a website that tries to keep up with all the city murals. They change so often, though, that
cool.
that it's a little out of date. But someone should do that. Someone should make an Atlanta United keep track of all
like
of them.
A map of where they all are.
Yeah. Because that happens to come up a lot in Reddit and stuff. It's one of those recurring questions. Like every couple months, someone will go, "Where do I find this?" and "Where do I can go to see the murals?" So So if you're listening, someone go do that, and then send us the link,
Make a
and
map for us.
We'll advertise it.
We're too lazy to.
That's right.
Appreciate you.
That's right. Yes.
Or you have better resources to do it than we do.
Right.
So
yeah,
by all means,
maybe you're good at maps. I don't know.
Maybe you're good at maps. Oh, my Lord.
So, you have had a lot of guests in 13 years. You even told us you're not used to being interviewed, right? You're typically on the other side, although you still came very prepared. And
did you tell the listeners about my T-shirt?
Oh,
my goodness!
Even do
Show it off to the camera.
Show it off to the camera.
You got the Joseph and Miggy
and Goose and
Tito. That's one of my favorite tees, and I don't own it. I don't own that.
You don't own that tee?
That's one of the few I really like that I don't own.
I don't own that tee either, but you own all of them, so that's shocking.
I own a lot of them, yeah. Although I've been trying to cut back. It gets expensive, guys.
It does get expensive.
But it's so hard when a new shirt comes out, and then so I say I'm going to go see Tanner at the team store, and that's like my excuse to go and be like, what's new?
Yeah.
What can I force myself to not buy?
Yeah.
And so it's like one of those weird things of eating dessert or tasting some sort of sugar that you're not supposed to have, but you're just I'm just going to go in and have just a little bit of it.
A taste.
And,
one of the worst decisions I ever made was joining the Atlanta United trade and sale group, because every little tiny piece of swag that comes out is posted there for your eyes to see and for you to want immediately. So I've been avoiding it the last few months so I could actually save some money for video equipment and things like that instead of a 300th T-shirt.
I interrupted you, Jay. Go ahead.
No. We're good at that here. So what's one of your favorite, or what do you think is one of your most interesting guests?
Interview guests?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Dolly Parton was amazing.
What?
So smart.
Oh,
in
my
Atlanta,
gosh.
or were you
here in
okay?
I mean, I've interviewed, Salman Rushdie.
I know it's kind of a wide open question. It's a hard question.
Ken Burns, Jason Longshore.
Wait, you interviewed Jason Longshore?
I did. He actually had him live. On
I saw
show.
I saw the video.
A Q&A.
Yeah.
It was really
I do
fun.
kind of remember that now. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Dolly Parton was a highlight just because she's so interesting.
She seems so magnetic.
She looks fascinating, but then she starts talking, and you're like, holy cow! Boo! She was telling her story about being one of more than a dozen children. And her parents were illiterate. The only words they could read were out of the Bible. She taught herself to read, and now her philanthropy is actually giving books to young children. So childhood literacy is one of her real passions, and where she devotes a lot of her philanthropic dollars. But just how serious she was. You could see this woman is a businesswoman. She's obviously an incredibly talented musician and performer as well, but there's so much more than just the Dolly Parton that she presents that most people see on the screen.
Yeah. She is another genius at many levels as well. What about athletes?
Athletes.
Yeah. Anybody stand out? I'd throw a curveball
totally.
on that one. No pun intended. Yeah.
Oh, there you go, Jay.
I think I interviewed Garth Brooks at a Braves game, but I don't think that counts.
That's a very interesting place, though, to conduct an interview.
Sometimes you just have to meet them where they are.
Yeah.
Right? He had to get to his show, so couldn't make it to the studio. I'm sure I've interviewed athletes, but I'm going to think about it while we continue our conversation.
Okay.
Sure.
Now, I know that a lot of listeners do like to chime in and they like to ask questions, things of that nature. Is there anything in particular that you absolutely remember as being like this sort of weird question that a listener asked?
Yes. And I realized I didn't answer your question about why I tweeted about why I wasn't going to tweet as much about Atlanta
United. I was just making a comment, but I'd
love
love to know the answer.
Well, no, and I think it ties in with this question because I have a very diverse audience. So I'm
on social media?
Well, on social media and on radio. So I can't only clog up my content with one, what we call content vertical of Atlanta United.
Industry lingo, folks.
Because people are trying to come to me for, I need to explain legislation, for example, or, a business deal. I need to explain taxes and a lot of other things, which is why I was saying.
I mean, if you want to explain taxes to me when we're off air, I'd love to have that conversation with you.
I spend a lot of the first quarter of the year reading legislation that's going through the General Assembly, so I pay less attention to soccer. So that was why I tweeted that. I used to host a live talk show, a call-in show called the Consumer Call-In, and people with consumer issues could call in, and it's people who had prepaid all their money to have their pool dug, and strangely the contractor disappeared after getting paid without doing any work. Isn't that odd? So things like that. These are real consumer issues. This one guy calls in and he wants advice because he's around 30 and he'd never filed a tax return.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh.
And I had a panel of experts, and I mean, it was like there's dead air and then there's deathly air.
Awkward.
It was awkward silence because nobody wanted to chime
Get him in legal jeopardy either.
and be like, well, I'm not an attorney, but we think you should call one. And it's like, what do you say to that?
Right.
Oh my goodness.
He's like, am I in trouble? And I think that the Secretary of State of Georgia, Kathy Cox, was on the show that day.
Oh, no.
So she actually is an attorney. And she's like, well, I'm not giving you legal advice, but I'm as your Secretary of State. She's just trying to say this in the least dangerous way possible. Of you better get your act together because it's a big problem.
Holy cow!
So that might be the craziest thing. But that's what happens when you have call-ins.
But that's also mind-boggling because when I think about the people, that listen to NPR. I think about people who are curious, who are hungry for information. So, for someone to call in that has no idea that they could potentially be in hot water, that's what's crazy to me.
And the truth is that all of the hilarious stereotypes about the NPR listener are not really true, especially not in Georgia.
No,
where my audience
that's only
is
in
the
Martha's
entire
Vineyard.
State. Yeah, maybe Atlanta, right? But my Georgia's got 10 million people in it, and that's who's listening to me. So I hear from farmers in South Georgia and kids and people from really different worlds than I live in, and so back when I say I can't only do one type of story, it's because I'm talking to a really, really diverse audience.
And that farmer who follows you on Twitter is really hoping you tweet more about soybeans.
Right, and less about Atlanta United.
Why is it always Atlanta United? Never talking about soybeans.
Nobody has ever complained about my Atlanta United coverage.
That's good.
For the record.
Okay, great.
And
wonderful.
if they do, we will find them.
You can send them our Twitter.
When I pronounce the name of a South Georgia town wrong, that's when I hear from people.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I mean, but people like to do that regardless. I mean, I could say one word wrong, and I could say the wrong word in general.
We've made it a game on this podcast. We actually have the listeners email in everything that she said incorrectly, and we can address it on the next podcast.
Wow.
I live and breathe my grammar on the interwebs. I'm constantly corrected on Twitter. I will admittedly say grammar was not my subject.
We're talking about fun feedback. We're not talking about the mansplaining DMs you get on occasion.
Oh, I get It's crazy. You would think that
telling you how to talk about soccer on your
correct.
soccer podcast.
On my women's on my Queens of the South women's episode, I got feedback from, and mind you, I respect feedback, and I respected the feedback he gave me. However,
it was mansplaining.
It was mansplaining on how I should appropriately.
This is an interesting
talk about
topic
soccer.
because as a woman in broadcasting, I mean, have you ever faced these challenges?
Oh, goodness. I was sitting in my Atlanta United season ticket seats,
Yeah.
right, in my club. And the guy next to me, who clearly was just given the tickets
That's the
by
thing with
the
club is
company,
the people
next to me.
people
He's a
all around us
client.
rotate. They just
Yes.
rotate in and out all
I
the
knew.
time.
Well, I knew who the regulars
Yeah.
are. We have
Yeah.
each other's phone
Right.
numbers. Like we're
Yeah.
the solid.
I have my regulars
we have
phone
the
numbers
solid,
also.
We have the solid 8.
Yeah.
But
8 to 10,
Billy,
yeah.
who was given the tickets next to me, who clearly doesn't know that much about soccer, spent the entire game just gently leaning over and whispering to me what had just happened. And I
He did
I
not.
didn't correct him.
You see an offside
I was
is
enjoying
when
it so much.
I wish that's the
You
time
know?
where like I wish I knew a way to like quickly like activate my voice recorder. So I
Right.
just record the moment.
Yeah.
For
and
posterity.
I really leaned in. I was like, tell me more.
Yeah.
You know. What's offsides again?
Really?
Oh no.
Oh man.
See, I can understand how at some points it's just a matter of being like, that's so nice. But there are moments where like people have said things to me and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know more about soccer than you do. But okay.
And it
Thank you.
isn't about knowing more than soccer. Of course, I'm happy to be corrected about anything, and trust me, I get corrected on lots of things. It's about sort of the assumption that you can even slide into my DMs to correct me.
Correct.
Right? Like, who are you?
Yeah.
Right? Typically, it's somebody who contributes, in which case I've got to respond. I love all my listeners. But that's what I think some people don't understand about quote-unquote mansplaining. It isn't necessarily the content. It's the
Boundaries.
assumption that you have a right to comment
Yeah.
on my body, on my mouth, on
Yeah.
my language, on my clothing, on anything, because nobody asked you.
Yeah. It's called boundaries.
Once again,
people.
clipping that out. I'm repeating that and going to sleep on it.
And I'm going totally off script here, but this is what's interesting because and this is the great thing about having Kelly and Jessica as part of Unrelegated is they offer a different point of view about soccer, about Atlanta United, and one of those things. And actually, I think this will kind of dive into that. Is I'm going to skip ahead and talk about one of the Atlanta United news items.
For sure. Go ahead.
One of the Atlanta United news items is the expansion of the training ground space, an additional 17 acres or so. And Doug Robertson had an interesting piece and listed 8, theories. And he had fun with it, right? Just threw some different things out there. And I'm not necessarily going to read all of them, but one of them at the top is a women's professional team, either training ground or whatever. That's the first thing that came to my mind.
That's immediately what came to my mind as well.
When they announced this. I mean, were you even aware of that they announced this new parcel until we sent you our show notes? Or
No, I saw Doug's article.
right.
And I enjoy the fun that he had with it. And I wouldn't put it past Arthur Blank.
Yeah.
And he's a visionary, and he's a businessman. And the story that I recently did for Marketplace, the national business show, was about the business model of Major League Soccer and why now it feels like suddenly this is becoming a thing, even though it's in the 24th season. And it's because of a very concerted effort to build the market, the consumer market for professional soccer. That market is only going to get bigger, and that market is half female.
Yes, it is.
And women enjoy watching other women play sports. So I think it would be the right decision, and I would not put it past somebody like Arthur Blank, who is a business visionary, and he also anticipates where culture is going, to be bringing a women's soccer team to Atlanta.
I mean, especially with the temperature going into the Women's World Cup this year, obviously with the whole debacle with the U.S. Soccer Federation and the pay gap that we have between the women's national team and the men's national team, there's there's a lot of spotlight that normally going into a Women's World Cup, you have the basics, you have the talks, you have the conversations, the interviews. Now, because of the lawsuit that's going on, it's almost like the spotlight has multiplied by 10 times, because now it's not only just about the women going into the World Cup trying to get a repeat World Cup win, but now it's about the women have proven themselves time and time again to be the better national team, and you're paying them
better attendance too.
Better attendance. I mean,
on the backs of stadiums being filled in Italy with 50,000 people or elsewhere, you know.
They're getting they're starting to have better viewership. It's this whole conversation of why are the women's national team treated any bit differently than the men's national team when we produce more.
And
so
there's truly no, if we're just looking at job performance, and this is a job just like any other job, and if you're paid for your job performance, there is zero legal argument that they shouldn't be paid.
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, basis of just winning the World Cup alone. I mean...
And it helps to win.
Yeah, it does.
Boy, are they good.
They are good.
Yeah.
They are insanely good.
They're more popular than ever, even though they're actually not anticipated to be the winners of the World Cup this year. That's what's wild about it, is that it's flipped a little bit. So there's some things that need to improve on the women's side, but that requires money and investment, and it's just not getting that right now.
Money, investment, and owners who want to take on that quote-unquote risk of a women's professional league.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. I don't know how realistic it is now, but we did allude to it in one of our other podcasts because Nick Alifi pointed out, who's the host of Soccer Over There on the Soccer Down Here network, pointed out that they started a girls development academy. They're going to kick that off.
Yep.
So, like, coincidence? You know, what's going on here?
A lot of things line up for certain reasons, and none of the people who are running our front office are just doing things on a whim. There's obviously a plan in place. So I commend them, first off, for starting the Girls Academy. I think more girls need to... I mean, the development of the girls for U.S. soccer has gone down. We've seen a decrease in women in soccer.
It's been the status quo for a while,
and you can see that
US Federation leadership,
right? And you can see that in other nations like France and England and.
Well, you know who's picking up the pace over there is the professional teams.
Yes.
The professional teams are now attracting. You know, they'll send their women to college, and the college programs are still the best here, you know, in the States. But then after that, they're going back to England, where they would stick around and play here professionally.
Right.
Now they're going over to England, back to France, playing with their home country's professional teams because they have better facilities, more money. The college level here is still top notch, and it is still a place that people want to go to improve their skills on the pitch and to improve themselves as a professional. But you are seeing a decline in women's attendance and soccer for college because they are developing other academies in their home countries that are. And now Americans are leaving. Go and play elsewhere.
They're going to Europe.
In that way, they're very similar to the men's program now. So the men want to go to play in the top European leagues and stuff like that. But we should be the top women's league, here and I think if we start it here in Atlanta, if we start a team, we could be a catalyst for a lot of change. I think, and I hope so with that culture that exists here, because I think they should be able to play in the Benz instead of this nonsense where they go off in a different stadium somewhere and get their own training facility and all that stuff. So that would be really cool. My theory was actually that they're going to have an Atlanta United themed cookout that they're going to do there. I'm still waiting on that.
Like the restaurant?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
There were a lot of theories that were thrown out in that article, and as Ricky said, I do enjoy the sort of entertainment that went along with it, the sort of fun that he played with it.
The Joseph statue.
Yeah, the Joseph statue.
17 acres.
Why not? That's big enough, right? Well, I mean, it's 17 acres to build a Joseph statue for number 17. It works.
There you go.
I mean, I think a sure bet would be office space.
Well, what about Arthur Blank selling 10% of the Falcons? Maybe he's moving that.
Wait, I didn't know this.
I didn't know that happened.
Somebody just told me. I'm looking at a Forbes article from 2 weeks ago when I was in Ukraine.
Welcome to Unrelegated Marketplace.
I know. And it just says this is Forbes, so I'm citing a different source. It says he sold a 10% stake in some assets owned by the Blank family business, including the Falcons, Atlanta United, and some real estate operating rights to Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So maybe he's
Got
liquidating
cash.
so he can,
Yeah.
Throw some cash
Some money elsewhere. Yeah.
I don't know.
Very interesting.
But based on my marketplace story, I can tell you that based on the success of Atlanta United, he would be able to sell a 10% stake and do well.
Yeah.
He won't give us the numbers. I've actually asked him. After the first season, I asked him, so how much money did you make? And he didn't tell me. Is that weird?
No, but that would be a very interesting, that's a number that I'd love to know also.
Yeah.
But that's a we're gonna hold
We'll
that
never
in my
get
back
that
pocket.
out
No,
of
you'll never get
the
it.
front office.
Maybe that usher knows. Maybe you told the usher.
He might.
Talk to him. Oh, man. Well, is there any, you mentioned the marketplace story. Is there any recent work that you're really excited about that either you just did or is coming up that you could tell our listeners about?
Well, yeah, I did do the marketplace story that aired a couple weeks ago, and I'll give you guys the link. You can share it.
We
And
will
that
shoot
was
it out,
just I featured Atlanta United fans and a young player, and I went to a game. But it was really just about, I actually interviewed Dan Cordemush, who's from Atlanta, went to UGA, who's a senior vice president with MLS.
Oh, nice.
And he talked to me about the business model of Major League Soccer, how they've spent the last 25 years creating the soccer that we understand today, which is why it feels like it's suddenly big, but it's...
Soccer was here 7 years ago?
Yeah, exactly.
You're joking.
It's sort of reaching this critical mass of marketing and some really, really smart business decisions that the owners made. So there's that, and that just is actually even for the casual audience member to just understand exactly even how Major League Soccer works. So what is coming up is that I will be broadcasting my live radio show live from the Gulch.
Ooh, what?
On May 29th. That is the day we're hosting Minnesota United, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wait, let me look. Wednesday, May 29th, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We're hosting Minnesota United, and I'll be broadcasting 4 to 7 p.m. I don't know exactly where in the Gulch, but we're working it out.
Mm-hmm.
And,
So,
I'd
AKA
love for fans to come by and say hi.
Oh, good. Okay, great.
But don't heckle while I'm live. That's awkward.
Yeah. So...
Because it's live, right?
Right.
Did I
Yes.
mention live?
It is
Yes.
live.
It's
You
live.
could just heckle politely. No swear words.
FCC, guys. FCC, guys.
This is NPR heckling.
Yes. Yes. That's something that we will keep in touch with you. We'll find out where you're going to be.
Okay.
We'll make sure that everybody knows where to go. We will be there. We'll be hanging out with you. We'll make sure that happens for sure. That's very exciting. I'm very excited to hear that. I know your producers and stuff, or your equipment guys, are a little, like, oh, God, what's going on? A big parking lot? Like, what's
I
that
know.
all about?
You can see
How's
my,
this gonna
my
work?
engineers looking at me like, wait, you want to broadcast your show live from the middle of a tailgate?
But I was assuring Ricky before. I was like, they got this. We could do this. They could do this.
For sure.
Siempre United does it all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, those guys got it nailed down. So we could always hook them up with the engineers with Siempre United. Well, real quick, while we wrap some things up, Atlanta United injury news. Mikey Ambrose will miss at least 3 weeks after suffering a slight tear of the meniscus in his right knee. That was our left back option / right back option.
Yeah.
And Escobar's still out. And
Escobar's back in training.
Well, he's back in training, but he's not going to start, I don't think. So we're going to probably, I think, from what I'm reading, he's not going to be starting. So we're probably going to be see maybe Gallagher for finally for Atlanta United to come up.
Yeah.
And play. And then it opens up questions about the left back experience and what's going to happen there. So a lot of, not that we haven't already been nervous enough about this, because we don't have a great track record against New England. We've drawn them twice. They've been wonky games. Their field is weird. It's Connecticut. It's Gillette Field, right? So, are you taking? Should I do this?
I'm taking pictures while you're on the radio.
I'm used to it. All the
back to
paparazzi.
Connecticut.
Yeah, all the paparazzo all the time. So, have you ever been to Gillette Field? Like where?
You mean Wolfboro?
Wolfboro.
I mean, Foxborough.
Foxborough, yeah.
Yeah, Wolfborough's in New Hampshire. Yes, when I was coming up,
Massachusetts?
it was Foxborough.
Yeah.
But yes, I've been there.
Yeah, and so it's a weird place to play.
Yeah.
And I think the last time they showed a picture, the last game they had up there were literally like 300 people in the stands. It was so it's just a weird ambiance, and we've struggled in the past. Like we had this thing early in the first season, right? We had the curse of the teams with crap attendance, because it felt like if there was under 20,000 people in the stadium, we would lose the game.
Yes,
We're so
it
out
made
of
no
sorts.
sense.
Yeah. So hopefully we go up there. We got our stuff together after a weeks of rest, and some of the guys were posting pictures. I know you're the Instagramaholic, Kelly. Did you see Reddy? He was like hanging out in some resort or something.
Yes, with Barco.
Yeah.
They were having a good time.
This is good though.
Yeah, let them live their life. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Get Barco a better
I'm pretty
haircut.
sure he did way too many Shimettis wherever he was at.
Yeah.
What's that?
The Shimetti?
It's
the
the
dance.
Eric Rometti shimmy.
Yeah.
We call it the Shimetti.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is, it happened after he scored the goal up at NYCFC in the playoffs.
It was cute.
Yeah.
Now I know
and,
what you're talking
and
about.
now it's called the
very
Shimetti.
cute.
So going into this match, as an Atlanta United fan, we've all been learning how to experience disappointment in a different way this season, I think. And some of us are coping better than others. How are you coping right now? What are your expectations for this game? What do you want to see from the team?
Well, let's win.
You heard it here first.
How about no rain?
Oh,
no
rain
bad
would be great.
weather, right?
No bad weather would be fantastic.
Enough of that. Yeah.
No
Just-
slip and slide during the match.
Just a game with actually some nice weather, even if it's cloudy, just no rain.
Yes.
Where there's no excuses, puddles, things that happen, no funky red cards.
Oh yeah, no,
or
absolutely. I'd love
no
that.
weird stuff.
I'd love everybody to come back from that game uninjured.
Yeah.
I think I want to see. Here's what I want to see, and I don't know how to do it. I'm not going to try to coach the team.
You're not going to whisper like the guy next to you.
I want to be like, it's got to be this formation or this formation, and this person's got to be in. I want to leave the game feeling like every player was played to the best, to bring out the best of their skills. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of meaning in that, and you guys know what I mean.
Yeah.
And this goes for any leadership, right? When you take a team to do something, you want everybody to leave feeling like I was directed and I was led such that all of the great things that I'm good at were executed here.
Yeah.
And I was in the position to be able to do that. That's what I would like to see, and feel like that was consistently. I'd like to see that was understood in the way that they are asked to play the game.
I think that would answer a lot of questions if we as fans feel we leave the game where the players actually look like they understand what's going
Yes.
on.
Correct.
Where they feel comfortable, and it's not like
There's
have
a
to think
direction.
about it. It's just they're playing. Because that's what I feel like we've been missing, is that fluidity, that sort of that ability for the team to just go out there and click.
Natural.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
they're good at what they do.
Yeah,
Let
we
them
know
be
we have
good
some
at
of the
what
best
they do.
players in the
Yes,
league.
we
They
do.
don't even have to think about
They
it.
didn't stop being good soccer players all of a
And
sudden.
they did not. They
So,
did not.
yeah.
I'd like. I think this goes along with that. The direction. It's players playing with direction and being able to play with ease in the position because they know what the responsibility is. I think to that point, I'm going to add on the ability to not hold back as far as creativity, go forward. Take the shot. I feel like sometimes when we do link-up play, or what I've seen at the beginning of the season, when we do link-up play, we're thinking too much about how to appropriately link up, when sometimes you just have to go for it. And I feel like
more direct play.
more direct
sometimes.
play, and it's a holding of the trigger sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's something that hopefully with this time they've had, they can finally have enough training together, and against a team that we should be able to beat, guys. I mean, this is not a team that is outstanding by any stretch of the match. This is not LAFC. This is not Toronto FC. So it's amusing to me when I think about expectations and how they've changed from the beginning of the year. We're sitting here talking about, like, I just want to see the guys out there having fun. And now, whereas last year it's like, I want to see Joseph get a hat trick in this game and score 6 goals.
The expectations have changed, and I think that's a weird adjustment for us fans to have, going from the team that we had last year to the team that we have this year, and understanding we all knew that there was going to be an adjustment period. I think
This is more than that.
Yeah. I think for myself, I mean, I knew that there was going to be an adjustment period, but I didn't think that we'd be coming into this game against New England and me being like, this is a must-win game. And it is. It honestly is. It's a team we should beat. You've had this team now for a 1 week break and then a week training. It wasn't even a 1 week break. It was just and
they had time to get it before Columbus.
This is the point where all of the excuses are out the window.
Yeah,
there are no more excuses.
Yeah, other than the injuries in the back line and things like that, we like you said, it's getting thin. They're just going to have to stand up. And even if we don't win, I just want to see, like you said, that we didn't lose because it was disjointed or those things that for whatever reason. Soccer is soccer. Sometimes you just, even if you're the better team, you lose. But at least show that there's a level of improvement happening so that we can kind of get the ball rolling, because we have a big run of games coming up after this. It's really a lot of games. Like in 50 days, it's like some crazy number of games.
Yeah, so. I still say must win, but I do agree that if we happen to tie or we lose, that it's a hard-fought game, and that if it's a loss, it's because of fluky, and it's not because we did not put in all of the effort and all the creativity to win,
Yeah. Plus, I'd like to read some positive stuff in Gresselmania's blog, the week after, please. Yeah. Thank you. So we have that game coming up on the 13th at 7:30 p.m. And then I don't know if I'm going to go to a watch party or not. We'll be sure to tweet out if we end up going somewhere. We won't be recording, though. But we'll also be playing FC Dallas after that on the 20th, and then it's fast and furious in terms of the games. Atlanta United 2 had a tough game, a wonky game with a bad call in the beginning where they got a call in the penalty box, and it wasn't really a penalty, and it just snowballed from there, and they just couldn't get back in the match. But coming up, they have a game on this Wednesday on the 10th. Against Memphis 901, which is a pretty cool team. The Culture guys have been connecting with some of their supporters groups and stuff like that, and I've been seeing a lot of cool vibes. They sound like a really fun team that sprouted up, and they're doing cool things in Memphis, so that'd be a cool road game. I actually think
that would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so they're going to be at Memphis 901, midweek though, a little tricky, 8 p.m., and then they're back at Kennesaw versus North Carolina FC, who's always a stout opponent, on the 13th at 7:30 p.m. Also, guys, Jess tweeted this out as well, but upcoming Soccer in the Streets has a event called the Walking Soccer Cup. Challenge two-time European Cup winner and Liverpool legend Alan Kennedy in a slower version of the beautiful game. So that'll be at Station Soccer, the West End, the new
Station
West
Soccer.
End Field, and
it's beautiful. I play there every week.
It'll be on Easter Sunday, the 21st, from 2 p.m., 5 p.m. So bring your cleats to church, roll out, put them on, and go there. Hang out with a Liverpool legend, guys.
And if you want to create a team, it's $120 fee for 10 players, but you can have your own team.
Yeah, it's a way to raise some money for a great cause, and also if he's there, there may be some other special guests that pop up as well. You never know. So at least
what do you know, Jay? What are you not telling us?
I'm just saying things happen. So so you have to show up to find out.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Be a fun thing to go record. Maybe we'll do a vlog or something. iTunes reviews. Leave us a review, guys. We have 81 reviews. If we get to 100, we'll do a giveaway.
Yes.
Yeah. We're giving away Rickey Bevington coffee for a day.
I'll say your name on the radio.
There you go.
I actually probably. I'll just work it into a weathercast. My boss will never notice.
Hurricane J. Riddle. What did she say?
In your traffic report.
I didn't know hurricanes have last names. It's really bizarre. Times are changing. So yeah, leave us a review, guys. And the giveaway, though, if you want to be in the giveaway, you actually have to write a review. You can't just leave a star, although we appreciate that. You got to actually write something, and we'll read it off on the podcast, and then you'll also be entered to win whatever we decide to do.
Yeah.
So it'll be a lot of fun. Remember, guys, our friends Atlantic Beer Bus, they do have a promo code UNREL. I think this is the last time you can use it.
Yep.
If you want to get 20% off Friday through Sunday. They have this tailgate, especially. We'll have to double check if you can still use it. I would say go try to still use it this month because they are doing that thing from Second Self. Yep. Where they drive for like $15 to the parking lot, and then they pick you up and bring you back to Second Self Brewery.
Yeah, it's a $15 round trip, but they pick you up at the brewery and take you to the game.
Not only cheaper than parking,
and
fun.
and
you get
an
an air
Uber.
conditioned ride
Yeah.
over there, right? With other inebriated people.
Yeah.
People
Beer
that,
drinkers.
fans.
Yeah.
So do that.
Atlanta United supporters.
That's right, and make sure you get on there because they'll be blaring NPR, and you don't want to miss that.
You don't want to miss it.
And I'll be hammering in the Golden Spike.
Ricky,
we do need it. Let's Rickey Bevington for the Golden Spike
guys,
people.
petition.
Vote now.
Petition it.
Petition.
Come on.
At Atlanta United, Rickey Bevington for Golden Spike.
It'll match my hair.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
it will.
Maybe we can get him to do a golden microphone or something.
Yes. Or instead of a hammer, you just hit it with a microphone.
With a microphone.
Yeah.
That would be dope. So, Ricky, where can all of the wonderful listeners in Relegated find you and reach out to you and send you those great questions like, should I pay my taxes?
Right, exactly. First of all, just a PSA here. Please pay your taxes. Just everybody listening. I am on Twitter at Rickey Bevington, and I'll spell it Rickey, because people think that it's a nickname. It's not a nickname. Ricky is my actual given name. But that's probably the best way to talk to me. Yeah.
Did you have a nickname when you played soccer?
Ricky.
There was no other nicknames growing up. It was just Ricky. It was always Ricky.
My brother calls me Roo.
Roo.
That's great. That reminds me of Roo from Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
That's right.
That's where
It
he
is a
got
character
it.
in Winnie
the
Pooh.
Ricky Roo is what he calls me.
That's such a
So
great
I would
name.
love to. I'd love to talk to people on Twitter. And despite my threats to tweet less about Atlanta United, I will continue to tweet about Atlanta United.
We insist. And otherwise, I'm going to call in the radio show if you don't.
We'd like to hear more about that Atlanta United.
And soybeans. Make sure, guys, if you want to, if you're a listener on the podcast, but you would like to see the wonderful shining face of Rickey Bevington in her cool shirt, you can see that because this will be published, fingers crossed, on Atlanta United Fan TV. I think we got all the kinks worked out, guys. So go like, subscribe, and share this episode on Atlanta United Fan TV YouTube channel. You can find us at UNREL ATL on all the social media. I'm Jay at JAY_Riddle.
And you can find me at the Kelly Francis on all the social medias as well.
And you can find Jessica at Jessica ATL UTD. Hey, Ricky, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This
wonderful,
was fun.
Yeah, wonderful talk.
Really great.
Yes, I loved every minute of it. And I'm really going to have to I'm seriously going to message you like late at night and be like, can you really cut those out so I can repeat them to myself?
Oh, right.
$5.
$5 a clip.
Listen, this equipment's expensive. All right, guys, take care. We'll catch you next time.